KPBS On Demand is supported by Splatero, helping homeowners pay off debt by offering streamlined access to your home's equity with no additional monthly payments or new debt. Splatero provides a lump sum of payment in exchange for a share of your home's future value. Pre-qualification is available at splatero.com.
Hey everyone, Julio Ortiz here, producer of Port of Entry. We have a bonus episode today, a special Halloween edition. With me are the hosts of the show, Alan, the golem of Golden Hill, Lilienthal.
Howdy.
And Natalie, the witch of the Buena Vista, González.
Yes, it's me.
On the board is technical producer and sound designer Adrian, the werewolf of Chula Vista, Villalobos. Ooh. Today, we're kind of shifting gears a bit and adopting a different format. I will basically be sharing a tragic story, and scary, of course, from Tijuana folklore, and we'll get to comment and react. Our story, you may ask? La Faraona. According to legend, the dancer who was involved in a supposed crime of passion that still haunts the grounds where the tragedy took place.
So la bailarina sin cabeza.
Well, no,
The dancer without a head.
So it's not like the dancer without the head, the beheaded dancer, but it's just it's supposedly an apparition of a woman who used to be a dancer, famous dancer. So we'll talk about the folklore, the person, the social historical context around her, and Tijuana, and what happened and the significance of the story. To help us understand fact from fiction, I enlisted the help of Fernando Escobedo, a researcher and historian of Tijuana who has dedicated his career to understanding the history behind Tijuana's folklore. We will also be hearing from Ursuala Mansur, an actress and researcher who was dedicated a good part of a decade to impersonate La Faraona. But first, the opening credits. Chicos, take it away.
From KPBS, this is Port of Entry.
Where we tell cross-border stories that connect us.
I'm Alan Lilienthal.
And I'm Natalie González.
And that's Julio Ortiz Franco.
Yes, who is that, sir?
Guys, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back and continue.
KPBS On Demand is supported by Splatero, helping homeowners pay off debt by offering streamlined access to your home's equity with no additional monthly payments or new debt. Splatero provides a lump sum payment in exchange for a share of your home's future value. Pre-qualification is available at splatero.com.
You are listening to Port of Entry.
Folks, welcome back to our Halloween special, where we will be diving into one of Tijuana's most famous legends and kind of demystify the story. La Faraona de Aguascalientes. De Agua Caliente.
Agua Caliente.
Agua Caliente. Guys, have you heard the story before?
I have never heard the story.
No, me neither. I mean, kind of, but only, as we mentioned earlier, la bailarina sin cabeza, the dancer without a head.
Okay. Well, the story is shrouded in mystery, intrigue, and tragedy, but the tale has more to say about the city, the times, and human nature than about the actual legend itself. But by all accounts, it is a tragic story. I think it's a sad story. So to note, all the sources had slightly different takes on who La Faraona was, from who she was to who actually killed her.
Mm-hmm.
First, what was the first source? Well, it was Olga Díaz-Crasto's anthology, Leyendas de Tijuana, in which she compiles Tijuana's most important folktales and legends. She is credited with putting together all of the oral stories in writing and forever shaping the imagination of Tijuana's future generations. Second is Fernando Escobedo, a Tijuana historian and researcher who shared his research about the life of Esperanza López Padilla, the woman behind La Faraona. Fernando is putting together a documentary with the producers of Tijuana en el Tiempo, a YouTube channel dedicated to put forth Tijuana's folktales. We will be linking those videos in the description. Lastly, a little footnote by Ursuala Mansur, a Tijuana actress that dedicated much of her life to impersonating La Faraona. But for those who haven't heard the legend or the tale of La Faraona, let's get into that. The legend as written by Sor Abeja and translated and retold by yours truly. The story takes place in Tijuana's golden age. Tijuana back then was something like America's Monte Carlo and attracted American celebrities, Mexican politicians, diplomats, gangsters, and gamblers alike during the 30s. The creme of the creme. For those who don't know, the former Agua Caliente Spa Resort Hotel in Tijuana was built atop a natural hot spring. It used to be beautiful. Imagine something like Palm Springs, but with water. That area is now a high school and a middle school after the government policies shut down gambling in Mexico in 1935. Many students and faculty members over the last 80 years report the haunting of a woman floating just slightly above the ground. That ghost is La Faraona, according to legend. So who was La Faraona? She was a performer, a dancer, and one of the more popular floor shows in the hotel. She was supposedly known as being somewhat of a good luck charm to keep by your side as you were gambling in tables and casinos. She had many admirers and many suitors, which gifted her a lot of wealth in the form of diamonds and jewelry. But according to Sorabeja, she fell in love with an Englishman with whom she started a relationship, an unrequited love in this relationship. Some say he was an investor, others say he was a dealer, others say a bootlegger or an alcohol smuggler. In other accounts, he was a member of Al Capone's mafia. Yet, in all the stories, it all ends in tragedy. He promised her a life full of love and to grow old back in England. But as the story goes, he was only using her for good luck and was never planning to marry her. According to Sorabeja, she would hand him her earnings and gifts that she would get from the admirers for safekeeping, which he would store along with his winnings inside a leather chest. Soon, she realized his true intentions and realized she was going to leave her high and dry to take the loot with him back to England. Some say it's because she saw him with another woman. Sorabeja recounts that a groundskeeper saw her one rainy night leave her bungalow with a leather chest and a gun. According to her book, La Faraona saw that the Englishman was packing his belongings in the chest in the closet and locked the closet door with the key, which he placed under his pillow. She tried to get one step ahead of him by taking the loot first after she saw him in a deep sleep. So she took the closet key from under his pillow and took the chest outside to bury or hide in the west part of the hotel near the minaret and tossed or buried the gun along with the chest. An hour or two passed after she came back, empty-handed and completely soaked in rain. The legend says that when she came back into the bungalow, the Englishman was startled by the noise and woke up to the realization that the closet was open and the chest was gone. In a fit of rage, he looked for his gun, but noticing it was also missing, he lunged at her, beat her, and tried to strangle her. But because she was the only one that knew where the loot was, he let go and threw her against the bed. She laughed in pain, says Sorabeja, and sobbed in the bitter realization that he did not love her. As they both calmed down, she poured a glass of wine for both of them, as well as a vial of poison split among the two glasses she had hidden in her robe. The unsuspecting Englishman took the glass, and they both drank. Minutes later, she collapsed. As for the Englishman, he started feeling sick and ran out yelling that he was poisoned to get help, which he did and was saved. He was never seen again. Legend has it is that the Faraona's body was buried to avoid any scandal that might discredit the resort, in which she now haunts to this day. Thoughts, chicos? Do any of you know any people who might have come across hauntings of La Faraona?
No, I don't have any superstitious friends. I just cut them out of my life.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm superstitious, so
right,
you
bye.
need to cut me out of your life. Sometimes I'm superstitious. No, I think my dad went to Lázaro Cárdenas High School, and maybe he has some stories, but nothing that I know of.
Do you know anyone that's seen her?
Nobody that's seen her, but it's not of my recent generation, but I know of people like from older generations that have a grandparent or a parent that have seen her.
So she's been in hiding for a few generations.
I don't know if she's hiding, but she's definitely haunted some people over the years. But anyways,
Or maybe she's just very selective.
Or maybe now
I'm
that
not
people
gonna
have
hunt you.
maybe now that people have phones and cameras, she's
like, no
Go.
pictures, please. Yeah, probably.
okay, moving on. Like many legends, facts are intertwined with myth, and to help us tell each other apart, we enlisted the help of Fernando Escobedo. Fernando Escobedo is a Tijuana historian researcher, and he shared his findings in research that he and a colleague of his are planning to show in a forthcoming documentary of the life of Esperanza López Padilla, the woman behind La Faraona. I met him in the old grounds of Agua Caliente, in Bungalow 21, the supposed place of her death.
¿Qué tal, Fernando? ¿Cómo estás?
We were also accompanied by José de Jesus Barajas, the current owner of the bungalow and manager of the museum. Professor Barajas has taken on the task of restoring the bungalow and putting the museum together. We sat on the porch of the bungalow, and across from us was a mural dedicated to La Faraona, whose model actually is Ursula Mansur, the actress who's a friend and colleague of Fernando. Adrian, please load the clip.
The legend of La Faraona is a very complex thing to try to explain in such few time, but we can say that there's two ways to explain the story of La Faraona, the legend and the real life of Esperanza Lopez Padilla, who was the origin of the legend. Sorabeja took the real story and transformed it into a legend, or took the different parts of different memories from students from the school, from the Lázaro Cárdenas school, from the Técnico Industrial School of Tijuana, and the teachers, and transform it into a legend.
So guys, this interview happened at the bungalow where supposedly she was murdered.
Whoa.
Okay.
Do you feel the vibe?
I definitely felt the vibe. Like, not at the porch when I was interviewing Fernando, but definitely when I went inside into her supposed room, which had all sorts of different clothing and just little...
Whose clothing? Her clothing?
I mean, not her clothing, but I mean women's clothing from the 1920s. And
Okay,
so
it's like
creepy.
dress it up.
it's super creepy. And so the flooring was the same and the lamp was the same from that age, from the original bungalows. So Fernando retold the story, but he told it in Spanish. And so I translated it. We're going to retell it. And Alan is going to do the honors of retelling that story.
Esperanza Lopez Padilla met a violent end due to the actions of her newlywed husband, Rodrigo Prieto Dominguez. Their initially warm and normal relationship rapidly deteriorated following their union, as Rodrigo's jealousy became clinically obsessive. Rodrigo's personality and actions seemed to reflect deep troubles, as hinted by his manipulative decision to marry Esperanza under the guise of protecting her from another man, a high-ranking official at Agua Caliente, who he claimed was pursuing her. His paranoia and manipulation pointed to a troubled mind, but the violence of his actions marked a dark chapter in the stories of Agua Caliente. Married for just a month and a half, on a fateful day, after consuming half a bottle of tequila at a downtown bar, Rodrigo returned to their separate bungalows in Agua Caliente, where they'd been living apart because of his uncontrollable jealousy. In a fit of rage fueled by his insecurities and intoxicated state, Rodrigo fatally shot Esperanza 5 times, with shots to her stomach, both shoulder blades, and her heart, completing an almost symbolic cross. In a chilling aftermath, Rodrigo, realizing the gravity of his actions as he watched Esperanza dying, was overwhelmed with remorse. He confessed to a colleague in the hotel kitchen that he had killed Esperanza and subsequently turned himself into the police, detailing the tragic events.
A tragic death, both in legend and reality.
Damn, that's cold, Rodrigo.
Damn, this guy, obsessive. I mean, Jesus, come on, Mexican man. What are we doing? What are we doing?
Yes, that's it.
But like, how do we even know that he was overwhelmed with remorse? Like, how do we even know that?
Well,
Who was there?
Well, apparently is that he went and he handed himself to the jail, to the policeman.
Well,
And so he said he felt guilty.
Yeah, if he didn't, he would have just ran away, I bet.
Exactly. Which is what the legend says.
He's like, I need to be punished.
Yeah, what the legend says, I mean, he was poisoned, but he survives, and then he gets out of town.
Yeah.
And nobody knows about him.
Okay.
But in this one, the reality is actually he turned himself in. And yeah, that's that.
Died in jail, probably.
Let's hope. So yeah. But what we're kind of trying to figure out is what was going on in Agua Caliente during that time. I mean, how did Esperanza get there? I mean, what attracted her to Agua Caliente? We will get to that after a short break.
KPBS On Demand is supported by UC San Diego's Art Power, presenting cellist Joshua Roman, performing from his album Immunity, alongside music by J.S. Bach and more, Sunday, June 22nd at UC San Diego's Epstein Family Amphitheater. Reserve your tickets at artpower.ucsd.edu.
Guys, welcome back to Port of Entry. We're talking about La Faraona. So, what was going on in Agua Caliente during that time, and what attracted Esperanza Lopez Padilla, a.k.a. La Faraona, to Agua Caliente? To help us understand this, Fernando Escobedo shared his findings.
Okay, Esperanza was a girl born in 1910 in Los Angeles, in LA, California, in a family of 3 girls and 2 boys. All of them were involved in entertainment. All of them were dancers or musicians, and they started dancing over there in Los Angeles in different Latino theaters, the Hidalgo Theater, the Mexico Theater, the California Theater, the $1 million Theater, the different parts of LA where the Latinos could entertain and work. So by 1933, Esperanza Lopez was chosen by the people here in Agua Caliente because of their trajectory, their experience as a dancer. She learned at her high school in James Garfield High School in Los Angeles, and then went to a theater company directed by Elena Landeros, a very famous artist from Monterrey, Mexico. And she started learning a lot of the business, right? Entertainment. And that's the way she started. She was picked up by the people of Agua Caliente to start us at the floor show in 1933, the late 1933, November, December, and until her death in March 1934. She really didn't stay here a lot of months, a lot of time, but her story transcended the frontier, the border, the generations and the border. You could find the Esperanza Lopez story in Chicago Tribune, in the newspapers in New York City, in the LA Times, many parts of the U.S. and in other countries.
Did you guys know that she was from LA?
She was from LA?
She was from LA.
So she was a Chicana?
I guess so. Like some say that she was from Sonora, and others say that she was coming from Sonora. Fernando's finding says no, that she was born in LA, went to high school in LA, and then because of the theater companies that were going down there, she got the lead to come down into Tijuana.
Wow. So she left Hollywood to come to Tijuana to try to make it as an actress.
Because Hollywood wasn't Hollywood back then.
It wasn't.
Makes sense.
Tijuana, actually, everything was going down.
It was the beginning of Hollywood.
The beginnings of Hollywood. But Mexico was going through that golden age of cinema, just barely starting. And so you had this beautiful landscape in Tijuana. So people were just coming in, like, again, come here to party, to relax.
To drink alcohol because they couldn't in the States.
Of course.
Yeah.
And what better way to network than with some alcohol in Mexico?
Exactly. So she was looking for her plug.
That's a way scarier story. Trying to make it as an artist in Tijuana.
Dang.
I'm saying it because I'm an artist in Tijuana. I know it's trouble.
So yeah, dude, it's she met a dark fate trying to look for a plug. And if anything knows about, being an artist in Tijuana, isn't that, right?
Yeah.
How is it?
How is it?
Yeah, being an artist in Tijuana.
Well, that's a whole different Halloween story.
So there was a lot going on in Tijuana back then, guys. Mexico was going through the start of the golden age of cinema. And so people were getting people from Mexico City, from different parts of the U.S. were getting attracted to come into Tijuana at that time. Adrian, please load the clip.
Tijuana was in the 1920s around the context of the dry laws in the U.S., right? The Volstead Act that prohibited the drinking beverages, alcohol beverages. And Tijuana was free from that kind of policy. So they started building up an industry tourist industry around the industry of alcohol and entertainment, right? Like you have right now in Las Vegas. But Agua Caliente in Tijuana was like the first experience, the first example that happened later in Las Vegas, right? There was a casino since 1928, the Agua Caliente Casino, where there were many casinos in Tijuana. The first casino in Tijuana in 1915, the Tijuana Fair. Then you had the Monte Carlo Casino right in front of the border, beside the first racetrack of Tijuana that was built in 1916. And by 1928, in June 23rd, 1928, Caliente was inaugurated and lasted until 1935, June 1935, when it was closed by the policies of the Mexican government federal Mexican government of Lázaro Cárdenas that prohibited the playing of the games in all of Mexico, especially in Tijuana. We can say that Tijuana was the first massive tourist attraction for the U.S. in all of the world, because Canada and Europe wasn't a massive kind of tourism for the U.S. in those years, in 1920s. Tijuana was like the first city that attracted citizens of the United States to visit abroad. The use of the cars was very important in that, because the cars was invented in early 20th century, and they started traveling across the United States. And the first place that they were attracted to in another country to cross the border of the U.S. was Tijuana. Tijuana, you could see Tijuana in the 1920s in music, in songs, in Broadway, in Siegfried Follies, in the name of cities in California, in movies, also movies. Many movies were done in Tijuana in the 1920s. So it was like a phenomenon. Tijuana was a phenomenon, a massive phenomenon that attracted U.S. entertainment and tourism.
So you mentioned that it was the Agua Caliente was a hotbed or a hotspot for many powerful producers.
Yes, one of them was an owner of Agua Caliente, Joseph Schenck, the starter of Fox, 20th Century Fox, the second director of United Artists, a representative of many artists that worked with him, like Charlie Chaplin, like Douglas Fairbanks, like Mary Pickford. Only the best of those years, and he was one of the businessmen that had more actions in Agua Caliente, and also he was the president of the jockey club of the racetrack. So he had a lot of power in Agua Caliente, and he worked very closely to Baron Long, another of the first owners of Agua Caliente. We can say that Joseph Schenck was in Agua Caliente since 1928. He wasn't in the papers in the first document of Agua Caliente as a company, but he was very important shareholder.
Okay, so there were crazy times when La Faraona was living in Tijuana.
Crazy, busy, partying time.
Damn, I wish Tijuana could go back to those times of fame. I would appreciate it as an artist. But also I think it's horrible that La Faraona was just like pursuing her dream and she ended up, death.
Yeah. I mean, she was looking for the dream just like Rita Hayworth, like Fernando mentioned. And so she was just trying her luck, kind of like a springboard.
The people in Agua Caliente were owners of a theater in East LA in Los Angeles. The theater was called Mexico Theater. Enrique Martinez was the accountant of Agua Caliente, and maybe I don't have the whole of the story of the theater, but I think they used that to bring some of the talent of the Mexicans, the Latino part of the entertainment in Los Angeles, to bring it to Agua Caliente. And you can see they were very intelligent people and business-like people to bring a very positive reaction to the business that they were building.
It was the connections that moved between Tijuana and LA that, if you think about it, you're an artist trying to make it big, and you know that anyone who's anyone will be there in Agua Caliente. So Esperanza was looking for her chance, just like any other, struggling artist, which in turn makes Esperanza's story tragic. Again, it's just that girl, that person trying to make her dreams work and then interrupted because of an obsession of a man. And somehow along the way, the story gets distorted, in which the killer makes it out alive and kind of makes him look good. Come on.
I mean, I don't even know what to say.
Mexico.
I'm kind of, I'm used to it.
Yeah, it's just so sad, just that how the story gets buried in a sense, and the facts get just completely get overlooked. And what Rodrigo Prieto did just completely overshadows like the intent of Esperanza and what she's trying to become, that better person.
Well,
anyways. So one thing that I wondered is, what impact was Sorabeja's work in, I guess, the collective imaginary of Tijuana's generations, and what did Fernando feel about it? So let's have a listen. So all of the folklore of Esperanza or La Faraona is captured by Sorabeja. Tell us about the significance of
such an important document, such an important book, because it permitted that the legend went on and attracted the attention of different generations, like me, almost 100 years later, almost 100, like 90 years later, okay? So if no one wrote about the legend of La Faraona and speak about the story of Esperanza Lopez, not exactly as it was, but as a legend, maybe we won't be talking about this right now. And I think this could lead to many historians and myself to understand the presence of women in the history of Agua Caliente and Tijuana, because even if we don't like it, we, as historians, we can see through a window of a tragedy, because a tragedy hits many spots and picks up a lot of names of people, and the story of a place like Agua Caliente is, you can see it, you can have a look right at the moment when Esperanza was working, and that's why that's the reason why I started investigating all of the floor shows and the dancers because of Esperanza Lopez. If Sorabeja hadn't written that legend, I wouldn't be writing or investigating about the other girls and the other singers and the other musicians of Agua Caliente and Tijuana. I really think that the history of Tijuana is like laying off the previous experience of many of the people that came to Tijuana. Like only speaking about the discurso, the legend, the black legend of Tijuana, and that's all. Like that explains everything. But you don't see the personal experience, genealogy, the work experience, the relations of their ancestors, their parents, their brothers, their sisters, who they were. And if you see everything, if you see it as a whole, you can understand better why they came here. The good and the bad, everything.
What Fernando does, I think, is great because he kind of paints Esperanza as a complete person, not just that scary story that we hear.
That's what I was gonna say. Like that, I think it's interesting that, like, I kind of knew this story when I was a kid, but it's just like the dramatic story of La Bailarina Sin Cabeza, like the dancer without a head. But like the relevance of that story when I was a kid was just the fact that she was a ghost hunting people. But like the reality is that it's a horrible story of a femicide.
Exactly. So let's say if you were walking across Lázaro Cárdenas on a rainy night, Natalie.
I would never do that.
Say you did.
Let me just say something real quick. I'm a very superstitious person. And when I drive around Lázaro Cárdenas at night, like I don't turn my head like to look at the high school, because it's just I get scared.
Really?
Because I grew up thinking like this was real when I was a kid. Like I grew up hearing about La Bailarina Sin Cabeza, and like just like that whole area of Agua Caliente, I just think like it's super creepy.
Oh my God.
And thank God I didn't go to Lázaro Cárdenas.
If you had a one-on-one with her, with her ghost, what would you say now that you know her story?
Well, now that I know her story, like I would just be like, I'm so sorry. I thought you were just like a ghost. There's like so much behind your story, and I'm glad that, well, we're going to get into it, but I was going to say something about the actress, but we haven't talked about that.
Yeah, well, actually, it's a good segue. We're going to hear from Ursuala Mansur, who impersonates La Faraona and educates audiences of all ages about the folklore in Baja.
Hi, I am Ursuala Mansur. I am an actress, scriptwriter, and storyteller. In Tijuana, the people call me La Faraona, the Pharaoh, because I've been playing the character of the Agua Caliente dancer for many years. I began researching this character when I was studying at junior high school, La Poli, and Lázaro Cárdenas High School. where the ghost appears, and I participate in the history fair. I made my first adaptation when I was studying at the Book Center for Young Readers at the California State University, and the first time that I performed it at the Binational Border Festival in 1997. I've been invited to present my performance to history fairs, Tijuana, San Diego, festivals, and to high schools in Tijuana. The legend of the missing dancer arose at the time of the casino, but now it is told in the schools because in 1935 the casino was closed and President Cárdenas turned it into a school center. People knew was that a dancer in a white dress would appear. Then they imagined her as a ballet dancer, but she was a flamenco dancer because she danced in the Andalusian courtyard Patio Andaluz of the Agua Caliente casino. These shows were an idea of old Mexico that the owners, barons of the border, promoted in tourism, and the same is reflected in the architecture of the Agua Caliente casino, the Californian missionary style and the Moorish style of Andalusia, the south of Spain, the part dominated by the Muslim and which had Agua Caliente. The spa looked like the Alhambra Palace. There are still the minaret, the mosque wall, and the bungalows. That's why there are many postcards from the time with different flamenco dancers. Rita Cancino, the famous Rita Hayworth, shared the stage with Faraona. I am a flamenco dancer, and that's why that includes flamenco in my adaptation, which I published in my book, A Spook in 2004. I included this urban legend because I visit schools with the show Dancing Flamenco with the live guitarist. It has been a great contribution for the new generations to know that she was a flamenco dancer. I base it on Sorabeja's version from her book Narrations and Legends of Tijuana. This version talks about how the flamenco dancer fell in love with an English baron who murdered her because of ambition, and made a romantic version and keep the ending where she puts poison in the wine. I removed the bloody part and rescued the historical context. It is the most well-known legend of Tijuana, but they only know the horrible, ghostly part, and they don't know her true story. That's why I considered creating an image for this character. The only document that a dancer was murdered at the time is in the magazine El Detective Internacional by Professor Joaquin Aguilar. The magazine features a passionate drama in Agua Caliente and refers to a dancer, Esperanza Lopez, shot dead by Rodrigo, a cashier of the cafeteria. So we can deduce that she is the dancer who generated the legend. There is another testimony that mentioned that her name was Anita, and for many years she was confused with another character. Now I am preparing a film, and my job is to recreate the character. Flamenco dancers, even if they come from Hollywood or were born in Spain or had been taught by someone in their family. It is a family dance tradition of gypsy origin. She was also gypsy, and her name and her culture are closely related to magic. My contribution is to recreate the legend in what has been generated in the collective unconscious and perpetuate it to create an emblematic image for history because that's what gives us identify.
So yeah, another take of who La Faraona is, right? According to Ursula, she had gypsy inheritance. I'm not quite so sure about that, or Fernando didn't mention that. But I mean, again, it gives to show you that there's different versions, different takes, and so each person just kind of like fills in what they think about the story.
Yeah.
Now, you were going to say something about
Ursula?
Ursula.
No, I was just going to say that I think it's very interesting, and I admire what she's doing, and I like that she's doing that because I guess it's like, I don't know if I could do it. Like, I would feel like it's a lot of responsibility to interpret, the life of someone who had that tragic story, but I admire Ursuala a lot for doing that, and I appreciate it too.
I guess it's a great vocation, just trying to move around the city or different parts of the country, just to teach people about this story and what is the folklore of Tijuana.
Mm-hmm. I like.
And also, if you guys are interested in catching one of her shows, I mean, we'll definitely be linking her socials so you guys can check it out. Any last comment? Not?
No.
Guys, this is this is La Faraona, the history of the deceased, murdered dancer from Tijuana, Agua, Caliente.
Or if you're a Tijuanense from my generation, the real story of La Bailarina Sin Cabeza. Because that's how we grew up.
The dancer, the beheaded dancer.
Yes.
Guys, this is all for your story. I'm Julio Ortiz. So this is our Halloween special, and I hope you enjoyed it. Nos vemos pronto.
Nos vemos pronto. This episode of Port of Entry was written and produced by Julio César Ortiz Franco.
Adrian Villalobos is technical producer and sound designer.
Lisa Morrisette is director of audio programming and operations.
This program is made possible in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
This project was also made possible with support from California Humanities, a nonprofit partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities. Visit callhome.org.
I'm Alan Lilienthal.
And I'm Natalie González. Nos vemos pronto.
KPBS On Demand is supported by UC San Diego's Art Power, presenting cellist Joshua Roman, performing from his album Immunity, alongside music by J.S. Bach and more. Sunday, June 22nd at UC San Diego's Epstein Family Amphitheater. Reserve your tickets at artpower.ucsd.edu.